What's up, y'all? It's T-Tar, and I wanted to today move away from our usual speculation of talking about Unova Remakes and talk about something more core that's happened in Pokemon, the Ancient Hero. This is something that started in Legends Arceus, and it was a story that was kind of told to us in the background. So I'm going to explain today completely what the Ancient Hero is, and maybe this can even tie into what might happen later this year with Pokemon in 2024. What's interesting about talking about this Ancient Hero is that the most oldest character we know in Pokemon is AZ, who existed 3,000 years ago. We don't know when this Ancient Hero existed, but he could be even older than AZ. So we're gonna talk about him. The story of Legends Arceus is that we're living in a almost modern Sinnoh, if we're honest. It's just around 150 years ago, where the land isn't established. There's not a lot of buildings made yet. It's just where Jubilife is. But we're split between two clans, Diamond Clan and Pearl Clan, and they've each befriended these 10 very powerful Pokemon, 5 each, and so they kind of equally control the playing field and they clash with each other. But the story of the Ancient Hero goes way back before this, as we talked about earlier, and the story goes to something called the Celestica people. Before we had Sinnoh, we had Hisui, and before Hisui, we seem to have something else. The Celestica people. There's more to talk about with the Celestica people, but to put it as bare as possible, they were a group of people that existed in the most ancient Sinnoh that we know. And one of these people was crazy. He befriended these 10 extremely powerful Pokemon and was a juggernaut. He is hailed as a hero of the Celestica people. We don't know much about what his purpose was, what he was doing, but this is what he did. He befriended these 10 Pokemon, and if we're following what we know about Pokemon, he didn't have Pokeballs. They literally just followed him. And what he did is, he started going around what was Sinnoh back then and looking for these certain plates, the Arceus plates. The legend says this crazy overpowered man wanted to meet Arceus himself, so he started gathering the plates, and eventually, he gathered all 18 of them, the same way Volo did, just as we have to fight him with Giratina, and he got to meet Arceus. Not only did he meet it, he battled Arceus and earned its respect. The god of the whole universe, he earned that dude's respect, and he's not a protagonist. And I just want to add, so this settles in your blood, this is not the anime or the movie. This actually happens in the story of the games. Long after his time, when the Diamond and Pearl clans start to come to Hisui and start fighting over it, it's those 10 Pokemon's descendants that are the noble Pokemon they use. That's how overpowered this person was. But unlike a lot of myths, his legacy wasn't lost to time. So if you go into the houses of Legends Arceus, you see a photo of him on the walls. So they continue till this day to worship him as the only man who met Almighty Arceus. Think about how cool this is. While the later ones, Adamant and Irida, wanted to meet Almighty Sinnoh as Dialga and Palkia, who they mistook for being Arceus, this Ancient Hero met the real deal, the actual Almighty Sinnoh that was Arceus. You see, AZ is not much of a fighter. He does have an immortal Floette, but as far as we know, this man who not only has 10 Pokemon but got Arceus' respect seems to be the strongest character known in all of Pokemon, especially without being a protagonist. And Legends Arceus gives us one more gift about this Ancient Hero by showing us what he looks like. So y'all knew this was coming, of course, when you go into the tents of the Diamond and Pearl clans, who both, they share one feature despite how differently they look at what Almighty Arceus is. They both worship the same Ancient Hero. This is what they show him to look like. No one knows why. The Ancient Hero looks exactly like Alder, who is a character in modern days who's a very strong trainer. And it's not just looks a little bit like him, it looks too much like him. Like how Alder carries Pokeballs along his neck, he carries some crap as well, but it's not Pokeballs, because back then didn't have them. So what's going on here? Here's actually a cool artwork someone made, taking inspiration from the photo. Let's talk about this ancient Alder man. What happened after he earned Arceus' respect? Check this out. He got Arceus' blessing. Him and all 10 of his Pokemon got this blessing. But this man would go down in history as so crazy that they made a temple for him at the top of Mount Coronet called the Temple of Sinnoh. It's effectively both the temple to Arceus, but as well as his existence with this 10 Pokemon. It's like the 10 Pokemon and Alder man who are closest to Arceus. That's what the temple is for. Now there's a lot to go on here with the Celestica people and a certain set of other characters in Legends Arceus, so I'm gonna have to talk about those in other videos. But this ancient man, when they say he got Arceus's respect and blessing, this is kind of crazy, because we too got Arceus's respect and blessing. And what this resulted in Legends Arceus is Arceus gave us a piece of himself. This man, the one person who got Arceus's respect as far as we know before us, the game doesn't say it, but I think it's more likely than not that Arceus gave him a piece of himself too. So this man with 10 noble Pokemon not only was the strongest trainer of all time that was able to defeat Arceus. When we say defeat Arceus, obviously no one can actually defeat Arceus. Arceus will just play a game with someone where they send an avatar, which is how we fight it at the end of Legends, right? So he was so strong, he beat Arceus's avatar with just this 10 Pokemon, and it seems like he got a piece of Arceus himself. That is what the Ancient Hero is. Alright, so let's go through some facts. So the 10 Pokemon he befriended, of course, just to name it, is, and remember, these are all maxed out, extremely strong versions. It was a Wordier, Cleaver, Slim Lilligant, Ursaluna, Basculegion, Rocky Arcanine. I don't even know how we had an Electrode, especially back in those days when they didn't even have the primitive Pokeballs we do in Legends Arceus. A Sneasler, Braviary, and the Rock Avalugg. These were his 10 Pokemon. I'm pretty sure all 10 of these are considered noble Pokemon. We just get to ride 5 of them. But yeah, the blessing they got from Arceus, these 10 Pokemon are larger than normal versions of them in the games. So it makes you think maybe Arceus gave them some sort of power buff. But either way, those are the 10. So let's talk about the big question, of course, that everyone's asking, right? How could this ancient Alder person be back here in the past? It makes no sense. There's an interesting tidbit, right? Which is that Alder in the current games, he's extremely strong. The reason he loses to N and you don't get to fight him as champion initially is because he doesn't really care to fight. You know, there's this story going on with Alder where he lost his best friend Pokemon, and after that he kind of gave up. And we don't really know much about Alder. So it kind of paints this weird picture that, was Alder this ancient man who, after something happening, he got sent to our time period? Or some people say it the other way around, right? Like Alder, after he experienced the black and white events, because Ingo also got sent back in time, maybe our Alder got sent back in time. For the sake of avoiding paradoxes, I would rather lean towards him traveling forward in time, right? And this whole backstory with him losing his partner, which I believe is a Volcarona, maybe these are things that happened all the way back in the ancient days. But isn't that so weird to think that champion we meet, who jumps off the cliff to meet you, he met Arceus, fought Arceus, befriended a piece of him, and is pretty much the origin and the big hero that all of modern Sinnoh worships? And effectively is the strongest trainer of all time in all of Pokemon? And you see, the thing Gamefreak did is they introduced a time traveler in this very game to make us ready for that thought. That the same way Ingo traveled back in time, okay, you have a picture of Alder on the walls, along with, we'll talk about this in a different video, a picture of a Maxie and Archie looking dude. So it makes you think, hold on, is Gamefreak, are they trying to tell us tons of characters just got time distorted? But we're gonna go with the more vanilla idea here, because I think it's more powerful to say that that's not Alder. But since it looks like him, what that would mean is that's Alder's ancestor. A long time ago, if you go up Alder's bloodline, he's actually the strongest trainer of all time that met Arceus. Which also still works to how careless but overpowered he is in modern games. That without caring, he's still champion level. And then his grandson is extremely strong. It's like, despite not even being anywhere near the Sinnoh games, he's essentially he's got the blood of the god of Sinnoh. Not Arceus, but the god trainer of Sinnoh. And there's one other thing to note here, which is that the game doesn't directly say this photo here is what the ancient hero is, but they show it to you in a way to imply that. Either way, the very fact that this man looks exactly like Alder, whether you want to include time travel or not, is something huge. It almost makes a paradox. Hello? Hello? This sucker looks like freaking... And so this is why I wanted to start this discussion, because on this channel we're of course talking about linking Scarlet and Violet's story and theme of time to black and white. Because Zekrom and Reshiram, if you go beneath the truths and ideals theme, the truths represent the traditions of the past and ideals are about what you want to work in the future. In my personal opinion, as cool as it would be that this was Alder, I would be pretty happy if it was just his ancestor. And when we get to Unova games, I mean, they have an elephant in the room now. Maybe they'll talk about just what's up with Alder. Obviously not that he would know, but just where did he come from? You know, what were his parents like? And what is the backstory with the best friend Pokemon that you lost that made you give up on fighting and all that? Especially if what I said happens with when we revisit Unova, it's a modern Unova that takes place like right after Paldea's events. So we carry on the story. Now there's one last thing to talk about with this ancient hero. And it's something that you gotta read into the Arceus plates and those old poems to really put together. And it's kind of sad. So I read through all 20 of the verses and it was really weird to read this at the end, the 20th verse. Again, y'all, this is just my theory and interpretation of this verse, so y'all add to it if you want. But once it shone upon us all with all the warmth of welcome sun, but now we weep, to grief we fall, starved of light now it has gone. So I read this a bunch of times to try to figure out just what I'm thinking, and this is what it's led me to, right? Arceus, around the time of this ancient hero, after he earned the respect of Arceus started to live alongside the people, which is crazy. A god, or just God, living among the humans in whatever the little village is something crazy to try and put your mind to. But think of it as God itself living among its people. So you've got a whole gen of people who don't believe in myths, the idea of worshiping an idea, but rather living alongside God. Almost so close that it's only natural that they start to take it for granted, or strife starts forming from within this paradise. You know, any issue that could have arose, if Arceus is right there living among them, they could easily go to Arceus, get blessings, and get rid of whatever issues are plaguing them. So here's my idea of it, right? When they say the light left, one day Arceus just left. And the reason I say this is the exact explanation I gave. Being that close to God, you begin to rely on it. And then when it left, the Celestica people, they fell into despair. And this is what made the Celestica people get wiped out. The Celestica people left and disappeared after this. So look at the rest of the verse here. So again, once it shone upon us all with all the warmth of welcome sun, right? Arceus. But now we weep, to grief we fall, starved of light now it is gone. Arceus. It's like it left. This is the only way I can see it. And some they go, despair withal. In search of it, they reel and run. These are the Celestica people. They're so used to living alongside God that the moment it left, they fell into despair. They quit their hearts, abandon hall, and leave our lands to be undone. And when they're gone beyond recall, this land will be a home to none. This land will only ever be a home to Pokemon. Which means, again, it's just my interpretation, every Celestica person left. It became just a land of Pokemon for a while. And then the Diamond and Pearl clans, they come over and they start making it their land. But this is what I think happened. I think Arceus lived alongside these people probably after this Alder man went and got its respect. So then Arceus is like, you know what? I'm gonna hang here for a bit. And everyone lived alongside Arceus and developed this crazy like culture. And then we had this crazy period in time where in this village or whatever this is, I like to think of it as a village, that we had a world where everyone was living alongside the cure-all that can fix any of your problems. But maybe something like the Alder man died one day, and so this made Arceus not care as much to hang around and it left. Or Arceus didn't like something about the people, how they were so reliant on it. But either way, it left and the people fell into despair and they ended up wiping themselves out. That's the way I see this. If y'all want me to go through more of these verses, I will, but that's the only one I wanted to share for this video. So it really makes you think, right? What happened to Alderman? So in terms of the Celestica people, we have two candidates, of course, Kogita and Volo. Volo's extremely mysterious, but even more so is Kogita, for reasons I can't talk about here. But we have a third candidate now. The Ancient Hero was clearly a Celestica person, so I guess that would make Alder a descendant, and somehow, far from Sinnoh, another Celestica person's descendant. This is the Ancient Hero of all of Sinnoh, which is the most important region in all the generations. Whether you like a different region or not, Arceus is at the top of the food chain. It's insane to imagine this Alder man was not only close to Arceus, but literally got its respect and probably was wielding one of its avatars for a bit. But yeah, that is the ancient person. I hope y'all enjoyed. Shank that like button and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.